You really don't understand cosmic horror until you've set up your own handheld emulation device. I don't know if you've seen a really good cosmic horror film, something like John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, or John Carpenter's The Thing, or John Carpenter's I may be watching too many John Carpenter films. But you've set the whole thing up. You've sourced your ROMs. I use Bernays on mine, but I'm told that Horseradish does a pretty good job as well. Or you could try and dump your ROMs, but the last time I did that, the council fined me for fly tipping. You've installed your emulators, meticulously optimized each one to within an inch of its install, scraped your box art, realized you'd made a mistake, scraped it again, decided you wanted to add a few games, scraped it again, and then finally chose a front end. Let's face it, it can be a job in itself. I've seen some people, after a year of having a device, saying that they finally set it up the way that they wanted. In previous generations, those people would have discovered penicillin. The reason that the human race isn't advancing any faster than it has been for the last few years is that we're spending half of our time deciding which colour Pokemon ROM that we want to try first. I actually tried to time myself the last time I set up an Android handheld, but instead of using a watch, I picked up a compass by mistake. I don't know how long it took me, but I finished at north minutes past east. You've done all of that work. And all of a sudden, you're sat there with your device in hand and you've got no idea what to play. The entirety of gaming history is at your fingertips, but all you want to do is tap out. And that's when the cosmic horror hits you, the eternal irony of the universe. You spent so much time making everything perfect that you no longer have any desire to play. But that's not good enough. You've spent a fortune on this and you should be able to play some games. You need a guide that's going to take you towards the light, something that's going to show you how to make your Retroid Pocket Nova sing. So in this video, I'm going to show you 10 must-play games on the Retroid Pocket Nova. If you're stuck for things to do, then this video's for you. I don't like it when it rhymes. I'll stop it. So join me as I show you how you can make sure that you're able to dive into a great game without hitting your head on the shallow end. Before we start, a quick word from our sponsor. If your new project still lives in a folder called Do Not Delete This or I'll Cry, then it's time we talked. Every project deserves a proper home online, whether you're making your own homebrew Game Boy game, creating apps to optimize Android, or 3D printing a grip that turns your George Foreman grill into a steam machine. People need a good way to learn about it, and you can't just share a Google Doc or, God forbid, the IP address of your local server. What you need is a domain name, but most domain registrars treat their sales like a Game Pass subscription. You buy in at a low price for the first year, and then you see it skyrocket when you have to renew. This leaves a nasty taste in your mouth, and if you choose the wrong domain name, a nasty stain in your pants wondering how you're going to pay for it. And that's why you need today's sponsor, Pork Bun, because they sell almost all of their domains at cost. So whether it's year 1, 2, or 25, you're going to get their best possible price. You also get free Whois privacy as standard, a free SSL certificate, and real human support by email, phone, or chat 365 days a year. In fact, Pork Bun are so good that Forbes, Advisor, and USA Today both rate them as number 1. And it's not just the press, because they've got over 25,000 Trustpilot reviews with a 4.8 score. That's more impressive than a PlayStation Portal that doesn't micro-stutter at the final boss. And as your project grows and you need more help and support, well, Pork Bun's got you covered with cloud hosting for WordPress, email hosting, Proton Mail, and a whole raft of other services that will make your internet presence sing, all in one place. And all with that great level of support that you can rely on. So when your project is in serious need of help and your buns are on the line, put some pork in them. Just head over to porkbun.com/retrocorner and use the code RETROCORNER26 at checkout for $1 off your next domain name. Check out the link in the description. If you long for the days of your terrible twos, when your only goal was to knock over something larger than yourself and then scream about it, then Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee on the GameCube might be for you, except this time they hand you a nuclear reactor and an opponent. You take on the role of one of 11 kaiju, which is Japanese for enormous creature with a dislike of planning permission, and reduce Tokyo to rubble, whilst another monster tries to do the same thing to your face. This is a really fun brawler with a fully destructive environments, distinctive moves for every monster, and the kind of scale that makes this the best kaiju game ever made, not just a cynical cash grab. You've even got some more advanced tactical maneuvers, because the monster that causes the most damage is going to be targeted by the military. Force that on your opponent to soften them up before you move in for the final blow. This is the perfect game to play on the Nova, where two enormous monsters are flattening a destructible city. It asks an awful lot from the hardware, so you need something which is nice and beefy, and the Nova will handle it like a dream. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is actually having a remaster made at this very moment, and it'll be available on November the 3rd. But if you're just picking up a Nova now, this is the perfect time to experience the original game in all of its glory. We now move on to a game where you have to shoot air out of your ring into the faces of your enemies, who then inflate like extremely disgruntled beach balls so you can pick them up and bounce on them. No, this isn't a game about a certain politician's sexual proclivities. This is Klonoa 2, Luatea's Veil. Not a good title if you often mispronunciate your worms. A fifth bell is about to join the four bells that hold the world together, only this fifth one risks unravelling the dream world of Luatea. Only you can stop it, playing as Klonoa with your friends Lolo and Popka by your side. This is one of the finest platforming games on the PS2. It's better than many of the others that were produced at this time, and it's the sequel to one of the finest 2.5D platformers that was available on the PlayStation 1, and yet it moved so few copies that the game devs could have hand-delivered them. The studio behind this was Namco at the very time that they were creating games like Soul Calibur, Ridge Racer 4, Dead to Rights, the very height of their powers. And yet Klonoa 2 just didn't cut through for some reason. In the years since its release, people have rightly found this game again and realised that this is the sort of platformer where every single jump depends on split-second timing, with proper platforming dynamics that are a challenge, but that also make these games a joy to play. And that's why you want to play this thing on the Nova, because this is one of the best handhelds in terms of input lag. And that means you're going to play this with a considerably closer experience to what you would have had on the original hardware. If you want a game where your main character takes his clothes off before taking a beating, well, you could head towards the Saucy Kit Kat Club, a club named after an induction ceremony where you have to dunk fingers of chocolate into a jar of hollandaise. Or you could try Maximo, Ghost to Glory. This game is actually beautifully difficult. It's like a cartoon version of Dark Souls. Think, if you will, of a 3D Ghosts and Goblins, which is exactly what this was meant to be until Capcom's own legal department said no. So the team built the closest thing that they were legally allowed to do, right down to the underwear. You fight through waves of undead in a full suit of armour, and every hit you take strips a piece of that armour away until eventually you're battling skeletons in nothing but a pair of heart print boxer shorts. How they knew what I was wearing underneath this camera, I've got no idea. Maximo returns from a war to find his kingdom in ruins. His trusted advisor seized the throne and started harvesting souls to make an undead army, which, to be fair, is the sort of ambitious infrastructure project that I'm expecting from our new Labour government. Maximo objects, is killed instantly, and then strikes a deal with the Grim Reaper, who's worried that he's going to be out of a job if there's no more dead. Power is important here, and on the Nova, Maximo is going to run brilliantly without any tinkering. In Maximo, a single dropped frame is the difference between landing on a platform and landing on a spike, and that's why you need something as powerful as the Nova. Sometimes on these lists, you have to include games that almost nobody has played, and Freaky Flyers is one of those games. Forget racing on the ground and strap yourself into a weaponised flying machine, looping the loop and defying the ground, blasting one another out of the sky in an airborne demolition derby, where the rules have flown out of the window at 15,000 feet. Retract the flaps, release the chocks, and adjust the trim. If I'd adjusted the trim of my razor, I might still have hair by now. This is one of those hidden gem games on the PS2 where every character's fully voiced and has got their own storyline, and the writing does an awful lot more for this game than the actual gameplay does, which is something people have said, this is a little bit too slow. But fast, tight races was never really the point here. This is a game about spectacle and personality. I mean, one of the characters is a sentient cactus who's also a stuntman. Once you stop expecting it to be Wipeout with feathers, this is genuinely fun to play and fun to spend an afternoon with. Midway went bankrupt in 2009 and took the license for Freaky Flyers with it, so there's no way to buy this today that I'm aware of. This is one of those games that is just simply a lovely narrative way of rediscovering something that has otherwise been wiped off the map. And if you're going to rediscover it, stick it on an OLED panel, crank it up to 3x resolution, and you'll believe a cow can fly. As if we hadn't done enough property damage in Godzilla earlier on, our next game is The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. This is a game that you can't play without destroying something. Stand perfectly still for a minute and a helicopter will crash into your face. This game just won't let you be peaceful. This is an Incredible Hulk game. It's fantastic. It's every bit as good as the Arkham games and the Spider-Man games that have come after. It's an open-world PS2 game where you play as the Hulk and the entire city is a weapon rack. Rip a lamppost out of the pavement and swing it like a golf club, tear a bus in half and then wear the two halves as boxing gloves. There is no subtlety here, and there doesn't need to be. And there's a nice touch buried in the design. Unlike most open-world games, the city doesn't reset when a mission starts. Whatever chaos is left behind is still sitting there when you begin the next mission. Which means it's entirely possible to make your own life harder purely through your own bad decisions. This is a genuine hardware showcase for the Nova. It's a demanding open-world title with persistent physics. I mean, just to show how demanding it is, in the Abomination boss fight, you have to both repeatedly throw each other through the same 3 buildings until the geometry just stops loading. That is to say, on the PS2, this game is demanding. And what it's demanding is the sort of hardware that you'll find on the Retroid Pocket Nova. Now, it might seem like we're covering a lot of PlayStation 2 games on this list, and we are. This one is no different. It's Smuggler's Run, and one of those games whose entire job is to make somebody go, "Oh, that's why I bought this thing." Basically, this is a driving game, but you take on the role of a smuggler driving stolen goods across enormous open desert terrain chased by Border Patrol, the CIA, and rival gangs. Where you're going, you don't need roads. Of course, that comes with real vehicle physics. Shock columns on each car, tyres reacting individually to the terrain, vehicle parts that visibly break off and fall away. We're not just talking about big empty spaces here, but lots of different types of terrain that behave differently under your wheels. So mastering the vehicle is about reading the ground. And on a map where you can see so far, you can nearly see the curvature of the earth just behind the gift shops that's selling the end of the map keychains. Okay, you can't actually see the curvature of the earth. It's a very, very long way. That's what I'm trying to get to. Funnily enough, this game came from a studio that started out as a visual effects company and worked on Peter Gabriel's video for Kiss That Frog. And then a few years after Smuggler's Run shipped, Take-Two bought the whole studio and renamed it Rockstar San Diego. But Smuggler's Run isn't a game that needs any sort of redemption, red, dead, or otherwise. It's just a really great game that can be a bit difficult to run because of its constantly streaming graphics. But the Nova can handle that load like an industrial washing machine can handle a month's worth of my pants. Load it up, strap in, and set off for the border. On to the next game, and well, bloody hell, it's for the GameCube. Who saw that coming? When you're in the middle of an argument, do you ever think, what I really need to do now is turn into a wolf? Well, Bloody Raw Primal Fury is a 3D fighting game built entirely around that premise. You get to pick from 16 different fighters, and every single one of them can transform mid-fight into an anthropomorphic beast. I've heard there was going to be a 17th fighter, but they dropped him when it turned out his beast form was a slug. But mastering your beast form is just as much fun as mastering your human form. They are faster and stronger with an entirely different moveset, and you have to do this whilst the ground around you is breaking apart and dropping you into different areas. Sorry, I wrote arias there, which I'm sure isn't right. I'm sure it's not Bloody Raw, The Search for Vivaldi. But this game does have different names depending on where you bought it. Outside Japan, it's Primal Fury. Inside Japan, the exact same release is Bloody Raw Extreme, and so is the Xbox version everywhere. But ultimately, what you're left with here is a fighter that did something novel that's never really been copied unless you've already played Altered Beast. The transformation isn't a gimmick that's bolted on, it's the strategic layer. You have to time when you burn your gauge and when to save it. On the Nova, fighting games are one of the few genres where your input latency starts to become the difference between landing your combo and eating theirs. And thankfully with Bloody Raw, it's going to be you who's serving up the dishes. Now, it's no secret that the British don't really like the French very much, unless they're small, animated, and voiced by Bill Oddie on the cartoon. And I had to add this one in here because we lost Bill very recently, and he was something of a legend in his own lifetime. So to celebrate one of his best works, this entry has gone on the list. He's not in it, but Asterix and Obelix Kick Buttocks, yeah, we're back on the PS2 again, I'm afraid, is the title that we're looking at. And this is an American PS2 as well, because on this version, you get a slightly different opening sequence, which is well worth taking a look at. Known everywhere else in the world as Asterix and Obelix XXL, Kick Buttocks is a brawler platformer set in the world of Asterix, the French comic about one Gaulish village still holding out against the entire Roman Empire. Your village has been sacked and the villagers have been carted off, and it's down to you to punch your way through the Roman world in order to get them back. Quite literally, in fact, since legionnaires go flying comically out of the frame the moment that you land a hit. You can switch freely between Asterix and Obelix as you play, with Asterix being quick and nimble and Obelix being more like a wrecking ball. And the whole thing is full of the bright, exaggerated cartoon violence that made the comics fun in the first place. They did remaster this game for the 16:9 screens, but this original version is a lot of fun and has a lot of heart. And the cartoon colour is greatly enhanced with the Nova's OLED screen. We're getting nearer to the end of our list now, but I couldn't leave this game off the roster, and that's Gauntlet Dark Legacy. The answer to the question, what happens when you cross Dungeons and Dragons with a large pot of coffee and a toy box of skeletons? Playing as either a warrior, wizard, Valkyrie or archer, or one of the 4 newer additions, you have to fight your way through a continuous outpouring of enemies that don't stop until you destroy the source. This is all because of a mage called Garm, who summoned a demon using 13 runestones that have been scattered across 8 different realms. This is a game that you literally have to have the stones to play, and finding them isn't easy. The game was actually made by Atari after they'd been bought out by Midway, and they had their name changed to Midway Games West. As you play through the levels, you will see the odd hints of the studio's past, with the name appearing on signs here and there. Gauntlet has always been a bit of a fan favourite, and yet the constant generator-fed enemy camps puts a lot of strain on your processor, and the Nova is the warrior that you need because it simply just doesn't buckle under the pressure. Gauntlet Dark Legacy has actually become a cult classic, and it's exactly the sort of game that you want to try on this device. It's actually available on both PS2 and GameCube, but I'd suggest going with the GameCube version because it has an extended inventory, stereo sound, higher resolution graphics, and extra power-ups that the other console versions don't get. For our final entry on the list, I wanted to do something that was, well, just a little bit different. A game that looks at F-Zero and Wipeout and thinks, yes, but what if it had missiles? An XGRA Extreme G Racing Association on the GameCube is that game taken to its logical extreme. And this really is extreme, because if you push your bike hard enough, you can genuinely break the sound barrier. Somewhere at around about 750 miles an hour, every sound effect in the game just cuts out, except for the pickups and the taunts and your own weapon fire and the music. I mean, okay, saying that back, it doesn't sound like every sound effect cuts out. But honestly, when you do it in real life, it's quite spectacular. It's a real piece of design that I am thoroughly impressed with. Set in the year 2080, XGRA is a televised blood sport, a bit like the Running Man on bikes. The Riding Man, I suppose, where you tear around on tracks that loop and spiral and occasionally run straight up walls because the bikes can do that, they don't fall off. You choose a sponsor, you race for a corporate team, and everybody involved is trying to blow everybody else off the planet. This didn't get the best of reviews for its time, and the developer Acclaim collapsed into bankruptcy about a year after it shipped. But this is one of those games that you just have to experience because, well, it's just a little bit crazy. Acclaim made bikes that were too fast for the courses, meaning that you have to have a good grasp of braking and accelerating, something that you don't have to do on other driving games of the era. You also have that 750 mile an hour to hit, and that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. So there's a lot of challenge here if you're up for it. It's one of those games that needs the Hall effect triggers of the Nova so that you can feather the throttle rather than just slamming a switch on and off. And it's a game that after all of these years is probably due for a bit of a revival. But that's it for this particular list. That's 10 games that you can try out on your Retroid Pocket Nova as soon as it arrives. Well, as soon as you've done the setup. I mean, have you seen that new Christopher Nolan film, The Odyssey? He's changed it for modern audiences. Now it's about a guy who wins a war and then has to spend 10 years setting up an Android handheld. And where he's going, he won't need roads. But as you embark on your Odyssey with the Retroid Pocket Nova, I hope that you might consider one or two of the little games that I've selected on this list. And tell me what you think of those games. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And whilst you're down there, please do leave a like and subscribe. And if you would like to contribute to me being able to make more videos like this and the other ones on my channel, then there's a paid for Patreon link and a channel membership link in the description below. And I should say a massive thank you to my Patreons and channel members who over the last few months have helped me pay for some new studio equipment that means hopefully I'm going to be able to speed up my workflow and bring you more great videos. Or awful videos if you just don't like the content that I put out. But until next time, thank you ever so much for coming along. I hope you had a great time with this video. Until we meet again, happy gaming.